Hello, everybody. Welcome to the e-discovery channel. We're back here um, in fabulous New Orleans, Louisiana, and speaking to a New Orleans expat, somebody who left
Mm,
us, um, Ernie Svenson. Many of you know Ernie as Ernie the Attorney, um, who's left us for the wilds of Florida. uh,
yeah, it's the wilds of Florida. It's okay.
yeah, where the water mains work and the electricity doesn't go off twice a week, and
And the land of milk and honey.
yeah, yeah. Well, cold milk and warm honey, which we
Yeah.
settle for, right? The
Yeah,
refrigerators work. So,
right.
but I want to, Ernie, I want to ask you about you've been involved with, well, two things: an intersection between practical use of technology, going back to right after post Katrina. For people who don't know, Ernie worked at a big firm here in New Orleans for years, um, and then like many people at big firms couldn't get into his building after Hurricane Katrina, um, and threw in the towel and went off on his own as a solo. And then, and don't let me put words in your mouth here, but you were forced to learn technology, right? You
Mhm.
could leverage it, but you had to learn it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that is
and
kind of the key ingredient, learning.
learning it, yeah. Well, that's the theme I'm going to return to here in a second, and so that's progressed over the years. You've been given advice to mostly solos and small firms,
Hmm.
your peers in the greater New Orleans area, and then you've expanded beyond that. And
Mm.
it used to be like the paperless stuff, and then sort of merged into, well, what about all this trial technology and TAR and computer
Hmm.
assisted learning and blah 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 blah. And then the last year you focused on Chat GPT, right?
Hmm.
Really the onset of the the AI Borg, which is trying to
Right.
assimilate us all. And so I'm really interested in, and I mentioned this to you just before we started here. You had said, or you have on your website, um, you can train Chat GPT to be your best assistant, and it
Hmm.
seemed to me the key there is training. Train it to do what
Hmm.
you want to do, because what we seem to have in the larger world of legal technology now is AI is being pushed on people as this kind of panacea. It'll solve everything. It'll do everything. It's the
Mm.
easy button. Um, so talk to me about that. Talk to me about your approach and
Mm.
how you work with people and what you kind of tell them to do. Um,
Sure. Yeah, well, it's solo and small firm lawyers. I meet with twice a week. And we talk about how to use AI in real, meat and potatoes, rubber meets the road kind of ways. We've been doing this for a little over a year.
yeah,
And so I have a pretty good sense of what is going on in those practice areas of solo small firm lawyers. And I think that, I mean, training ChatGPT or whatever tool, and we don't just talk about ChatGPT, we talk about the foundational models, so Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, which is, Google Notebook, LM, for example, and Perplexity. Those are the big four that we talk about for the most part.
okay,
And we do talk about some of the specialized legal things because, of course, some of the lawyers are using those or try them and like them or don't like them. So we talk about all those things. And it is, training is the key. But, it's kind of funny. It reminds me of that show, The Dog Whisperer with Cesar Millan, who I started watching because I had a dog and the dog wasn't doing what I wanted it to, so I watched the show. And you quickly pick up that he's really training the humans. The dogs are fine. It's the humans that are the problem, right? So yes, I'm training the lawyers to use ChatGPT because it's not a push button thing. It's not a vending machine, although it can give you amazing answers really quickly and easily. But there's not a lot of power there because if you use AI to easily do things you weren't able to do before, it's almost a rule of thumb that whatever you're doing is going to be disrupted by AI. So you have to learn how to think more effectively about asking it the right questions, the right follow-up. And to me, this is what lawyers should be learning when they practice law, although I know a lot of them don't automatically learn this, and I observe that all in the wild. But it's, you have to think well, you have to reason well. It's not just low level reasoning. And I think lawyers who are trying it, which at least they're taking that step, but then saying, "Oh, it's no good," it didn't give me results. It's because they expect it to just answer every question that they have if they put one question to it, or figure out what's in their minds, which is another reasoning error. Like when you ask other humans to help you and you assume that they can read your mind when they really can't. I know you've seen that in your work because that's how humans are. So fortunately, my group of lawyers, because they're selected well, we don't have to deal with that. So we don't have any of that noise. We don't have to tell them, "Oh, be careful, it could hallucinate." We're way past that. So it's just about like, okay, what can I put in here to get this result? Or what have you guys tried to help you with preparing for deposition or whatever? And when they're talking to each other and they're all open-minded and realistic and rational, good things happen.
You sure you got a group of lawyers there you're talking to?
Yeah, I know, no, they really are. And I joke with them and say that if the lawyers I had to deal with when I was practicing law were only like them, I probably would still be practicing law. But that wasn't going to happen, so I had to leave.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's changed dramatically since
No,
you left. No.
no.
Um, but do you think it's, well, two things. First of all, from the general sense, the overall sense, do you think it goes back to the question similar to what happened to you after Katrina, that small firms and solos are a little more vested in making this work because they don't have IT staff, they don't have support staff,
Hmm.
they've got to
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
themselves.
yes, for sure,
So, okay.
for sure. And I mean, that's it. I loved my big firm when I left there. The people were fine. But what I didn't like was the institutional friction, the bureaucracy, all the lumbering, nature of that kind of world where too many people are in the kitchen trying to make a simple meal and then the simple meal gets ruined. So with solo and small firm lawyers, yeah, they don't have resources. They want the bang for the buck. They're willing to take advice, which really that's all I cared about. I was like, if I'm going to waste my time or use my time up giving advice that I've carefully curated, then I'd hope that somebody would actually follow it. Well, in the big firm world, they rarely do, not never, but rarely, because they have a mindset problem of like, well, the big firm is telling us what we need to do and don't do. And I still talk to lawyers occasionally who are in big firms, and it's shocking to me when I talk to the ones that are younger, that are starting their career, and I'll say, "Oh, so this AI thing is catching on. Are you guys using that in your firm?" And they're like, "No, we're told we can't use it at all, or they're studying it and they'll let us know when it's okay." I'm like, "Okay, well, start looking for another job now." You know.
Well, that begs the question, of course, that means somebody at the firm doesn't realize they are using it in a number of
Right,
programs where it's
right,
already baked in by these big
right,
companies. But that's a
right,
different
right.
that's a different issue, and that's part of the bigger problem. I think is that um, it's not well, it's not taught. This goes back to we've talked to this about technology for years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where do they learn this? They're not
Hmm.
learning it in law school. Maybe
Hmm.
if they are young enough and they came from a college where there were courses,
Hmm.
and they got taught by this, maybe, but they're definitely not learning it in law school. Um,
Hmm.
so that begs the question, as I was about to say. So, how did you learn about Chat GPT?
Hmm. By using it.
So,
And that's how you learn any of this stuff. Like that's how
yep.
I learned technology was I said, "Huh, I wonder if I connect this to that and do this, what'll happen? Oh, look, that's a good result." Or, "Oh, that's not a good result." But I think the problem that many lawyers have, and this is an easily solvable problem in theory, but in reality, probably not, is that they're so rational. Like the rational part of their brain is so dominant that they have no room for the part that's creative, the part that's the other side of the brain. And that effectively is what learning is. Like learning is, especially if it's something, that, I mean, it's one thing to learn mathematics. There's a well-developed system for it. We're not making the stuff up. Trial and error is probably not the way you want to go with that. But when it's something where it's new and people are doing it in different ways, the best thing to do is just try it yourself and learn. And so I keep saying to the lawyers I talk to that, they need to be running an R&D department, and the R&D department is inside their brain. And it's just creativity. It's basic creativity, which John Cleese, who studied to be a lawyer but didn't become a lawyer and went on to Monty Python, but he wrote a wonderful book called On Creativity, and he talks about it frequently. It's like creativity is just trying things. You try this, it didn't work. Well, try something else, keep trying until it
Yeah.
works. But
Thomas
lawyers will
Edison, right?
try,
I didn't fail
yeah,
5 million times. I figured
yeah,
out 5 million ways not to make a light bulb.
yeah. If Thomas Edison had been a lawyer after the first failure, you go, well, this just didn't work. Okay, we're out of here.
Yeah.
So that's the problem is, you have to be willing to experiment.
Yeah.
But that's why a group discussion has been really good because some of the sheepishness, hesitancy, and maybe even some resistance, although there's not a lot of that, gets dissolved when people hear other folks like them saying, "Yeah, I tried that, didn't that work? But I tried this and that did." So like nobody's going, "Yeah, it all I came to me, fr from Zeus's head, fully formed, and I just did whatever I needed to do." They know that that's not realistic, and they also know it's not realistic when they see those tantalizing marketing ploys wherever on the internet. Like, here are the 6 prompts you need to know, and this will change your life. And it's like, there are no 6 prompts that
That's
change your
right.
life,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
if they are, they're the ones you discovered, with hard work. Those would be
Even
the
if there
ones
are
that,
6 prompts, it's probably not the ones you're telling me about. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So what do you see? What tasks are attorney using this for mostly? Because again, AI is being pure opposed as what was the what was the big James Lee Burke just had a new book come out, and it's the I think it's the Haldecall Blues, the Haldecall
Mm-hmm.
Boogie.
Mm-hmm.
Haldecall was one of those cure-alls that was
Mm-hmm.
sold throughout the South in the 20s and 30s that would
Mm-hmm.
cure everything,
Right,
right? Everything from psoriasis to to cancer to bad breath.
right.
um, and I feel like that's what we've got with AI now. Are there
Mm-hmm.
some sweet spots? Are there some things you're
Yeah,
finding it's really good
yeah,
at?
yeah. There's definitely sweet spots. So, I mean, we kind of know now, like it's good at summarization. It's good at writing, or reconfiguring and taking a body of information you give it and say, turn this into an email, turn this into a blog post, turn this into a brief, and it understands those formats and the conventions around different types of writing, and it can very quickly take gobbledygook and give it structure and, you know, some sort of order in terms of progression. It's really good at that. Now, even even with that, you have to check it and read it and kind of say, okay, well, it introduced an idea I didn't say or misinterpreted it. So, you're always having to check it. That's baseline.
That's what
But
I'm
it's
sorry to
really good at,
interrupt, but that's what I really find helpful, being a solo myself. When I'm writing, I don't mind starting the writing. I
hmm
flesh out a project, I outline it, and then I turn to Chat GPT as my editor
hmm
and say, okay, hey, take a look at this.
yeah,
I said I was going to do 3 things at the beginning. Did I do them? Did I
hmm
do them logically? Did they make
hmm
do a um I don't know even what the right word for it would be, but look at this
hmm
thematically and make sure that
hmm
it makes sense,
hmm
and I think it's really good at that because sometimes it catches me.
Well, that's the better use of it. Like, so, and what's funny is when if you give it gobbledygook and say, write this, and then after it writes it, go, hey, look, or you give it to a different AI, go, look, this some stuff, critique it for me. It'll critique it. And what's funny is a lot of times when you force it to critique first, it does a better job of producing what you want. And of course, you can train the AI and generally, like in Chat GPT, you can create these custom GPTs and you can say, these are examples of what I want. And then when you ask it to critique, it'll critique based on what you gave it. So it's about training you to use it better. It's about training it to be better at doing the tasks that you want it to do, and you have to train it separately for different types of tasks.
Right.
But yeah, it's summarization writing, those are biggies
Can you, and
where
I'm
it
sorry to interrupt again, but when
yeah.
you're doing that, can you give it your voice? That is, will it save things from project to project so that it knows, hey, here's Ernie writing again, and this is Ernie
Yeah.
doesn't like
Yeah.
dangling participles, and he doesn't like paragraphs more than 3 or 4 sentences, or
Yeah, it can do that. Now, I mean, it can do it, and the thing to bear in mind is, and this is why you have to play with it to get a sense of whether it's producing the thing you want in the way you imagine it to be. So for me, I have a certain way perhaps that I write certain things and then it's slightly different for other things. And so I've trained the AI to do a couple of different types of writing, which it learns pretty well. Now, it takes a while for me to really massage it into what I want because I'm kind of pickier than most people maybe. I wouldn't say it writes in my voice necessarily, although I've never stopped to think about, I mean, I have stopped to think about it, but I have not really carefully
You know,
analyzed what
I
might
think
be
like
my
it,
voice.
yeah, Kafka versus Hemingway
Right,
versus
right,
Raymond Chandler. Um,
right.
um,
Right. I did do so the best custom GPT that I created, which anybody else could create this as well, wasn't the easiest one to create. It was when I was getting started, and so I didn't, think of overcomplicating it. But I just said, look, I want you to write like a combination because I didn't like it when I told it to write like Hemingway. It was too much like Hemingway.
yeah,
So I was like, I needed to kind of disrupt it. So I said, look, Hemingway and George Orwell, Elmore Leonard, and then
there
I
you
threw
go.
in George Carlin for some reason, and maybe that's why it can be snarky, which would be my voice, maybe. But just with that construct, I tell it like analyze this writing, tell me how to improve it. It's very good at doing that. But
Okay,
if I ask it to write it, it's very good at writing it in a very Spartan way, but it's not too much like any of those four writers, right?
okay,
So it's kind of like created a batch or an amalgam of those that is not so much like one of them. And that one is the one I like the most because I just want the writing to be clear.
yeah,
I want it, I want short sentences a lot of the times. I don't want it to be overdone, and telling it to follow those four writers did the job. Now, I'm sure you could tell it E.B. White and a whole bunch of other people, but you got to pick, I wouldn't pick more than three or four,
yeah, yeah.
because then,
It's
it
just
gets confused as to what it's
colliding.
trying
Yeah,
to do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, any other tasks? I mean, you mentioned Craig Bear, so back
Yeah.
office stuff. Is it helpful with that?
He uses it for marketing, and what else has he been asking questions about? I mean, we can talk about agentic in a second, but before we get to that, I do want to say I want to give an example of where it doesn't do well. And this is
Yeah,
one where we've repeatedly talked, people come back and say, "Oh, I tried to get it to do this redlining, and it's not good at redlining." And so what I think people need to understand about AI is some simple tasks for humans are really hard for AI. And AI is good at things that are hard for us. It's easy for it. But the simple task of redlining, now it's tedious and boring as hell, but it's simple. I compare these two things and tell me which one's different. It's not good at that. And it's not good at things generally that involve exactitude, right? And that goes to its hallucinations. Like it'll just make up cases or it'll come up with numbers. And so where there's exactitude required is where it's going to fail and where those failures will be more significant or bothersome. So redlining, it's not going to be good at that. It hasn't been yet. But there's other ways to get the redlining. It's already redlining was great before AI showed up. So I think just
yeah.
use the
I
old
mean, you
tool.
use a
It's
Redline
fine.
program, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So, where do you see it going? Well, I'm sorry. First, you said you wanted to talk about agentic AI.
Well, I mean, everyone wants to talk about agentic AI, so I figured we should talk about it. And I will say here is where, thank God, I get to watch all these other people who are trying to learn it, and then I see, look, okay, the agentic thing, the promise of agentic is being some miracle thing, which I'm sure it will be good. But if you think about why it's not as good as people hope it would be, it kind of makes sense. And people think, well, okay, this is going to be great. I just tell it to do things, and it goes off and does them, and it figures out other things it need to do, and it just goes off on its way, and it's just working for me without me giving it a lot of instruction.
Yeah.
Well, if it does something wrong or something you don't want it to do, or it goes down a false path and keeps going to that path, that's not good, right? So this idea that we're going to unleash it autonomously and get great results, no, because you have to observe it. You have to be checking it. Now, that having been said, there are some things that are mind-blowing. Like, I mean, to me, the first part of agentic is supervised. You supervise it, but let it do its thing. So, as an example, the first one where I went, whoa, this is amazing, was I was using the Comet browser, which is created by Perplexity. I'm sure this would work with the other browsers that have this agentic function, but I was using Comets, the Comet browser, and I faced an issue which I'm sure you would understand, which was I had this Fujitsu Scan Snap scanner. I bought a new computer. I needed to go get the software for it. The scanner is no longer, one of the newer ones, so it needs to go deep into the bowels of the Fujitsu website and find the software and go through all the steps, which annoys the hell out of me. I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't care how long it takes a computer to do it. If I don't have to do it, good job. So I turned to the browser and I said, look, I've got this model, a ScanSnap scanner. I didn't even tell it which model to start with. I just said, I've got the ScanSnap scanner. I need to get the software for my new Mac. Can you go find it? And it just took over the browser and started navigating to the website. And it was interesting to watch how good it was at guessing where to go next, which button to click on. But if it made a mistake, again, like I'm saying, I'm not having to figure it out. But it found it. And then it got to a point, it goes, okay, here you go. And it actually had asked me, oh, here are two options. Do you have this scanner or that scanner? And I told it, it's okay, fine. So it gets the software, and then it says to me, is it okay if I download the software? Because you see, it's not going to be unleashed without supervision. So I said, yes, go ahead,
Authorization.
download it.
Yeah.
And then it downloaded it, and I had the software. And at that point, I realized, okay, it's probably able to do a lot of things, and I'm going to look for more opportunities to observe it. And people in my group do the same thing, and we talk about it. But you have to observe it, and you can, but the good part of agentic AI, and I haven't pushed this envelope, but you can have multiple agents going at once.
Yeah.
So that's where it's going to start to get, crazy good. But I think we all need to learn how to prompt first. Think we all need to learn how it more or less works, even though we don't know specifically when it does any response, exactly what it's doing. We just need to get a sense of that. And when we have a sense of that, then we'll be ready for the agentic world. But if you don't have a good sense of prompting and you don't have that under your belt, I think you're going to crash and burn very quickly with agentic AI.
Right. I'm reminded when we're talking about all this stuff of not from the hype point of view, because the hype it makes my ears bleed sometimes. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I check my news and I check two or three things, and then I turn on LinkedIn and it's like AI, AI,
Hmm.
AI, AI.
Hmm.
It's like just this bombardment of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and a lot of that content is created by AI.
and it's all
Yeah.
AI generated. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But um, it reminds me of the early days of OCR when
Hmm.
OCR, the promise was astounding.
Hmm.
The reality was not there, but
Hmm.
it was close enough to being there that we could see. We didn't
Hmm.
really trust it because it was
Hmm.
missing. If it's only 90, if they said only, it's 90% effective. Well, that means it's missing one out of every 10 words. And on a
Hmm.
300-word page, do the math.
Right.
That's
And for e-discovery, I mean, yeah, I remember OCR, and it depends on what you're using it for, how much it matters. But in e-discovery, if the reason it misses a document is because it interpreted an L as a one or vice versa, and then didn't pull the document, that's not good.
yeah,
So, that's where precision and exactitude matter. And that's where I guess I'd be curious to see how it's going to be used with e-discovery. I mean, it'll be really good at e-discovery for getting most of the stuff really quickly and organizing it really quickly. But if you just leave it at that and don't think about, well, maybe I should go check for some other things or develop strategies and tactics to help you find those things using old school ways of searching databases,
right.
then your complacency and lassitude are going to bite you in the ass.
You're going to really bite you in the ass. Yeah. Um, although I was quite astonished when I was talking to somebody at a software company about hallucinations. And they were talking about guardrails and we got to do this and,
Mm,
blah, 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 blah. And I said, why don't you just shepherdize all the case sites
I know,
before you
right?
release it? And
Right.
Ernie, I swear to God, the guy looked at me and said, what's shepherdizing?
Yeah, well, I guess Shepherds may have gone out of business, but I mean, the first
No,
time that when that guy
they're
need
owned by, I forget, West or Lexus bought it and it's bundled
right,
in. It's in there. And then the
but
other one built their own. I think it's West and Lexus has Lexite. Um,
right,
so it's
but the
built in.
concept they solved that problem a long time ago. The concept of
Yeah,
like, let's take this site that has these numbers in the front and then something in the middle that designates the reporter, and then another bunch of numbers. they already solved that. Like the Westlaw and whatever, they could all search through and say, "Yep, that case exists. No, it's not been overruled." So they, with computers, they've already solved that. So when I hear lawyers say, "Oh, I trusted the AI," I'm like, "Really? Like, if a genie came out of the bottle, you'd trust that too?" Or maybe you'd ask yourself, "Are you hallucinating?"
Yeah,
And so you do have to use your brain. You do have to be reasonable and use reasoning.
yeah,
And I'm not surprised at how many of these mistakes are happening because I practiced law long enough to know that there's a whole bunch of lawyers out there that, if they were on a vaudeville stage, the shepherd's hook should come take them off. And they're not all, where you think they are. So a lot of them are in prestigious organizations with, a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
seeming, experience. But no, there's a lot of bad lawyering going on. And, people who practice know this, judges know this.
yeah.
So it's not surprising, but it's not an AI problem.
It's
This
not
is a
an
human
no.
not thinking problem.
It's
This is a
it's
laziness
not the
problem.
dog that needs to be trained,
No,
right?
exactly.
And I like your point. Like, you know, use some of those older tools to do some of this stuff because they already solved it with those older tools. And
Right.
you know, I wrote a column a couple of years ago where I said, when we're talking about AI, we got to keep the attorney in AI.
Mm.
That again, supervision, oversight, review, QC, whatever you want to call it. Um,
Human in the loop is the buzzword. That
yeah.
you need a human in the loop,
What was
preferably a
the
human who thinks well.
What was the phrase you used a phrase when we talked about this last time? That day we were having lunch. I can't remember what you said now. I should have written it down. Um,
I don't know. I'm
it,
sure it's
it,
one of my
it was
stock
about that. It
phrases.
was about, you know, QC. Like just,
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you need a human in the loop. I mean, that's where, first of all, that one thing about AI is it amplifies cognitive skills that a single human has.
yeah,
As we know from studying, organizational behavior of humans, the more humans you put in a room, with an agenda, the more good ideas immediately die and bad ideas get preserved. So it's not a tool that's going to help a committee, okay? It's going to help an individual lawyer who can think well and reason well, and that it's going to amplify at scale,
yeah,
relative to how much, thinking power there is. The low level thinking not going to amplify much. A lot of high level thinking, creative problem solving, it's going to be a boon. But that's why it's a threat to the people who are lazy, complacent, don't really care if it produces a low level response. And again, this has been going on for a long time. But it's like that phrase, I think it's a Warren Buffett phrase, like nobody knows who's swimming naked till the tide goes out. Well, the tide's going out, and we're starting to see a lot of naked bodies out there
yeah,
that just didn't know how to practice law. And this is just exposing that lack of skill.
yeah, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's almost odd to say, but for the very reasons you just stated, it's almost a good time to be a solo lawyer.
Yes.
First of all, technology has gotten cheaper, although that's still the one
Yep.
thing with AI especially in these big LLMs, they're expensive. Um,
Mhm.
but
But you don't need to use the expensive ones. I mean,
no, you're
Carolyn
using
Elephant,
those for the big cases and the big firms.
yeah.
Yeah,
And Carolyn Elephant on LinkedIn, who I follow because
yeah,
she's a, solo lawyer and she's using all these tools, and she's great about, daily field reports. And a lot of them are when she tests something and she'll say, okay, I gave, Lexus my request and I'm paying Lexus 270 a month and it didn't quite give me what I wanted. I said, well, let me try deep research with Chat GPT. Oh, look at there. It gave me exactly what I wanted. Or
yeah,
so she's exposing the reality, which I think I think we need to come to terms with this is that all these companies that are doing these other things, Westlaw didn't build their own LLM, okay? They're using one of the frontier models. So all they have is a wrapper around a frontier model.
they're all
And
using
that,
the same half a
yeah,
dozen engines,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
And that's fine because I'm sure they're adding things that, error checking and whatever. That's fine. But is it worth 270 a month? Fine. No, I don't think so. And so I think that, and I see this because the lawyers I'm working with, they'll say, okay, well, in this area, I do this kind of work. And like, for example, medical records searching is really tricky. So there's this service which used to be called View IQ. I think it's called Case something. They had to change their name because of branding problems or something. But they it's really good at getting medical records. And the founder came and spoke to our group, and I could just tell because he explained how he did what he did and what he needed to do to make it work. And he put a lot of extra effort in, and his goal is to make it affordable for smaller firms, right? So the Westlaws and the Lexus, they're drunk on the enterprise level money
Right. Right.
that flows into their coffers easily, which means they're not going to innovate, but it also means they're too expensive. And of course Harvey is the the shrouded in mystery wonderkind that nobody knows exactly what it does, but we know it does use OpenAI. And I just have to ask myself, like, how much do I trust that a company that's so shrouded in mystery and only wants to sell to enterprise, probably because they would be more exposed by solo and small firm people going, hey, what, this other thing doesn't, they be, hey, kid, get out of here, you're bothering me. So, they're busy making a lot of money off of clueless large
Yes.
companies, which is not to say that it doesn't work. It does, but it's just, is it worth that much to pay for it, if it
Yeah.
only
For
does a
what we
little bit
want to do.
more?
For what we
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah.
Because
No.
in the end, it comes down to the person thinking. Like Harvey sucks if you don't know how to use it, just like Chat GPT would suck. Harvey isn't magically better for stupid lawyers than Chat GPT is. It's just more expensive.
It just costs a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I want to be mindful of your time. I
Yeah.
really appreciate your talking about this. This is I think we're we're getting to an inflection point where small firms and solos are realizing that really is technology that they can use now, if they
Yeah.
can figure out how to do it. Your website is, tell me
So
again.
it's Ernie the Attorney. If you just search Ernie the Attorney, you'll find my website,
Yeah.
and find whatever you need to find. But I have, from my main website, it'll link out to my community, and that's really, I think, the best place to go
Okay.
is, hook up with other lawyers who are thinking carefully and intelligently about this. That's the key to learning it. You can learn a lot on your own, and you should be doing it, and you should use it a lot. But at some point, everybody wants to know, well, what are other people like me doing? And,
Yeah.
did I screw something up, or am I, pounding on the wrong door? So yeah, my inner circle is the name of the community, and just, check it out. And I'd love to have you if you want to join.
Sounds great. Well, I'll let you get back to the boat drinks.
Yes, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is 5 o'clock someplace. Actually, it's close to 5 o'clock here, I think.
Right, right, which makes it even more urgent.
So, yeah. So, thanks so much, and I'm sure we'll be talking again. Won't be seeing you for Mardi Gras. I take it you're not going to
No,
come
you
back
won't,
in.
but you will. We are going to come for Jazz Fest the first
Beth,
weekend,
yeah.
so you'll see us at Jazz Fest
Well,
most likely.
you know where to find me, and
I do.
just look for the big pot of crawfish out front.
I
All
will.
right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Ernie.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Take
Bye bye.
care.